The shooting range on the Galactic Coalition flagship Harmonious Unity stretched for 300 meters, give or take a few centimeters that nobody really cared about except the engineers who built it. I stood there, all four of my primary arms crossed in what I hoped looked like casual confidence, watching the human female check her weapon with the kind of focus usually reserved for defusing antimatter bombs. Her name was Kayla Frost. Yes, Frost. Like the temperature thing, humans had the strangest naming conventions. I am Commander Vex of the Kwarathi Empire, second best marksman in the entire Coalition fleet. Second best, mind you, because some three-eyed freak from Sector 9 claimed he could shoot the wings off a meteor fly at 2,000 paces. I had my doubts, serious doubts. But this human, this Kayla Frost, with her single set of eyes and her primitive gunpowder projectile weapon, she was about to learn why carbon-based bipeds from backwater planets should stick to what they knew best, which was apparently making terrible decisions and somehow surviving them. You understand the rules, yes? I asked, my translator unit turning my melodious Kwarathi speech into something her simple auditory organs could process. 5 targets. Increasing difficulty. Standard Coalition assessment. Kayla looked up at me, and I swear on the 3 moons of my homeworld. She smiled. Actually smiled. Like this was funny. Yeah, I got it, she said, her voice carrying that weird inflection humans called sarcasm. Point at thing. Make thing stop being intact. Repeat until someone's ego gets bruised. My scales rippled with indignation. Ego? I had no ego. I had skill, training, and 17 decorations for excellence in marksmanship. Completely different. Confidence is admirable, I said smoothly. Misplaced confidence is entertaining. Good thing you'll get a show then. Oh, I liked her. Well, no, I did not like her, but I appreciated the audacity. It would make her inevitable failure more satisfying. The first target materialized downrange. A simple circle, stationary, 40 meters away. Kwarathi children could hit that target during their 3rd molting cycle. I raised my plasma rifle, a beautiful piece of Kwarathi engineering that could adjust for wind, gravity, planetary rotation, and probably make me breakfast if I asked nicely. I squeezed the trigger mechanism, felt the familiar hum of charging energy, and watched the bolt strike dead center. Perfect. Your turn, I said, stepping back with perhaps a bit more flourish than strictly necessary. Kayla stepped up to the line, and that is when I noticed something odd about her stance. She was not holding the weapon like Coalition doctrine suggested. Instead, she had adopted this bizarre sideways posture, one leg slightly back, her body turned at an angle that made absolutely no tactical sense whatsoever. She exhaled slowly. The range went quiet, even though it had not been particularly loud before. Something about the way she held herself made everyone stop and watch. The crack of her weapon was startling, loud, primitive. Chemical combustion driving a small piece of metal through the air at speeds that would have been impressive if we had not invented plasma weapons approximately 4,000 years ago. Dead center. Adequate, I said, because it was. Barely. Target 2 appeared. This one moved, a gentle side-to-side pattern at 60 meters. Still simple, but it required timing. I fired. Hit. Kayla fired. Hit. Target 3. 80 meters. Random movement pattern. Slightly more challenging. I fired. Hit. Kayla fired. Hit. This was unexpected. Not concerning, mind you. Just unexpected. Humans were supposed to be mediocre at most things, except stubbornness and creating problems where none existed. Target 4 appeared at 120 meters. This one moved in 3 dimensions, bobbing and weaving with no predictable pattern. This was where most species started missing. Even I occasionally needed 2 shots for targets like this. I lined up my shot, waited for the targeting computer to predict the movement pattern, squeezed the trigger, and hit. Off-center, but a hit. Kayla stepped forward. She did not have a targeting computer. Her weapon was essentially a tube with a trigger and some metal bits that made the shooty part work. How was that even fair? She had to actually calculate trajectory and movement herself, like some kind of mathematical savage. She fired. Dead center. My scales did that involuntary rippling thing they do when I am confused, which I hate, because it makes me look uncertain. And I am never uncertain. Rarely uncertain. Occasionally uncertain at most. Lucky shot, I muttered. Sure, Kayla said, that smile playing at the corners of her mouth again. Luck. Let's go with that. Target 5 materialized, and I felt my confidence waver for the first time in approximately 7 standard years. This was not just a target. This was the nightmare scenario. A small, fast-moving drone at 180 meters, programmed to evade, duck behind cover, and generally make life difficult for anyone trying to hit it. I had hit this target exactly 3 times in my entire career. 3 times out of maybe 40 attempts. It was considered a pass if you could even force it to take evasive action. I aimed carefully, waiting for any opening, and fired 6 shots in rapid succession. The drone danced through the air like it was mocking me personally. Not a single hit, but I did make it dodge twice, which was respectable. Good effort, Kayla said, and I could not tell if she was being genuine or if humans had perfected the art of polite insults. She stepped up to the line, and something changed in her demeanor. The casual attitude dropped away like a shed skin. Her eyes, those weird forward-facing predator eyes that humans had, locked onto the drone with an intensity that made me uncomfortable. The drone began its erratic pattern. Kayla tracked it smoothly, her weapon moving in tiny increments. She was not trying to predict where it would be. She was reading it. Somehow, reading chaos and finding pattern in randomness. She fired once. The drone exploded in a shower of sparks and expensive debris. The range went completely silent. And I mean actually silent this time. Not dramatic story silent. You could have heard a scale drop. What? I said, eloquently. Kayla lowered her weapon, that infuriating smile, now a full grin. You know what your problem is, Commander? I was not aware I had a problem. You train soldiers. Earth trains warriors. There's a difference. I stared at her. All 4 of my eyes focused on this impossible human female who had just destroyed a target that should have been beyond her capability. Explain. She started breaking down her weapon with practiced ease, movements smooth and automatic. Soldiers follow doctrine. They do what they are trained to do. They are very good at it. But warriors? Warriors adapt. They improvise. They find the pattern in the chaos, and they exploit it. That is nonsense. Combat requires discipline, training, structure. Sure does, Kayla agreed cheerfully. But it also requires something you cannot teach in a classroom or simulate in a training environment. It requires the ability to look at a situation and say, this is wrong. Everything I know says this should not work, but I am going to make it work anyway. Lieutenant Thex, my aide, approached cautiously. He was young, only been through 2 molting cycles, and he looked at Kayla like she had just performed some kind of magic trick. He said quietly, the human scored perfect on all 5 targets. That has never been done before. I am aware, Lieutenant, I said through clenched jaw plates. I was standing right here. Should we? Report this? Report what? That I was mildly impressed by basic competency? Kayla laughed, actually laughed, and started walking toward the exit. You know, she called back over her shoulder, you are taking this pretty well, Commander. Most species get a lot more defensive when a human embarrasses them. I am not embarrassed, I called after her, which was definitely not a defensive statement at all. She paused at the doorway and turned back. Hey, Vex? Want to know the real secret? Against my better judgment, I asked. What secret? That target? The impossible one? I missed. My scales froze mid-ripple. Excuse me? I was aiming for the central processor. Hit the auxiliary power cell instead. Happy accident. But don't tell anyone. Kind of enjoying the mystique. She left before I could formulate a response, which was probably good because I had approximately 17 questions and no coherent way to ask any of them. Thex looked at me with all three of his eyes wide. Did she just say, yes? So she? Yes. But that means, yes, Lieutenant. It means she got incredibly lucky on the most important shot, and somehow made it look intentional. We stood there in silence for a moment, processing this information. The humans are terrifying, Thex finally said. Agreed. The thing about Kayla Frost, as I was about to learn over the following weeks, was that she represented something the Galactic Coalition had not encountered before. We had humans in the military, sure. Plenty of them. They made adequate soldiers, good engineers, excellent medics. For some reason, nobody quite understood. But Earth military doctrine was different from Coalition doctrine in ways that went beyond tactics and strategy. It was philosophical, spiritual, even. Though I would never admit that out loud because it sounded ridiculous. I decided to do some research. Not because I was bothered by her performance. Not because I felt my position as second-best marksman was threatened. Purely for professional development purposes, human military history was extensive and violent. Shockingly, violent. These people had been killing each other with increasingly sophisticated methods for their entire recorded history. They had wars that lasted years, decades, centuries, if you counted some of their religious conflicts. They had developed 12 different words just for variations of stabbing someone with a sharp object. But what caught my attention was not the violence. Violence was universal. Every species had conflict. No, what interested me was the pattern. Humans did not just fight. They studied fighting the way Quarathi studied quantum mechanics. They wrote books about it, philosophies, entire religions based around the concept of the warrior. They had masters who dedicated their entire lives to perfecting a single technique. They had schools of thought debating the proper way to hold a sword. A sword, a primitive chunk of sharpened metal, and they had argued about it for thousands of years. This is insane, I muttered, scrolling through another human military manual. This one was called The Art of War, and it was apparently written before humans had even developed space flight. It was full of observations like, know your enemy, and choose your battles wisely, which seemed obvious until you realized that humans needed to write this down because they frequently ignored these basic principles. Commander? Thex entered my quarters, looking nervous. He always looked nervous. It was his default state. What is it, Lieutenant? The human, Frost. She has requested a meeting with you. Tell her I am busy. She said you would say that. She also said to tell you that she knows why you are only second best in the coalition. My scales rippled violently. She what? Those were her exact words, sir. Send her in. Kayla entered my quarters with that same confident stride, looking around at my collection of marksmanship trophies with what I can only describe as amused interest. Nice collection, she said. Compensating for something? Why are you here? Straight to business. I like that. She dropped into a chair without asking permission, which was technically a breach of military protocol, but I was beginning to suspect that humans viewed protocol as more of a suggestion than a rule. I am here because you are curious, and I am bored. Seems like mutual benefit situation. I am not curious. You have been reading about human military history for the past 6 hours. The station network logs everything, Commander. Damn. She had me there. Fine, I admitted. I am attempting to understand how you made that shot. The final target. I told you. I missed. No, I do not believe that. I have reviewed the footage 17 times. The angle, the timing, the projectile trajectory. That was not luck. Kayla leaned forward, her expression turning serious for the first time since I met her. You really want to know? Yes. Promise not to laugh? I promise nothing. She grinned at that. Fair enough. The truth is, Commander, I did not aim for the drone. I aimed for where the drone was going to be. That is the definition of aiming at a moving target. No, you do not get it. I did not calculate where it would be. I did not predict its path based on its previous movements. I felt where it would be. Felt. I stared at her. That is the least scientific explanation I have ever heard. Welcome to human combat doctrine. She stood up and started pacing my quarters, gesturing animatedly as she spoke. It was very distracting. Look, your plasma rifle? It is amazing. Seriously, the targeting computer, the power regulation, the whole system. It is a masterpiece of engineering, but it is also making you lazy. Lazy, I repeated, my voice flat. You are not shooting. The rifle is shooting. You are just the organic component that pulls the trigger when the computer says okay. You have outsourced the actual skill to technology. That is called progress. That is called dependency. What happens when your targeting computer fails? What happens when you are in a situation where you cannot rely on your tech? That scenario is statistically unlikely. Murphy's Law, Commander. What is Murphy's Law? Anything that can go wrong will go wrong at the worst possible moment. It is like the first rule of human existence. I thought about that for a moment. It was a depressing philosophy, but I could not argue with its logic. So, you are saying humans are better marksmen because you assume your equipment will fail? No. I am saying humans are better marksmen because we practice like our equipment has already failed. We train for the worst-case scenario, always, every time. When things go right, we are pleasantly surprised. When things go wrong, we are prepared. That seems exhausting. Oh, it absolutely is. But it also means that when I am standing on that range with a weapon that has no computer, no fancy targeting system, nothing but me and a chunk of metal, I can still make the shot. Can you say the same? I could not. We both knew I could not. This conversation is very humbling, I said. Good. Humble soldiers learn. Arrogant soldiers die. Is that another human saying? Nah, I just made that up. But it sounds good, right? Despite myself, I found my mandibles clicking in what humans would recognize as a laugh. This female was impossible, infuriating, and somehow becoming less annoying by the minute. So, I said carefully, if I wanted to learn this human approach to marksmanship, Kayla's smile could have lit up a small solar system. Thought you would never ask, Commander. Training starts tomorrow at 0600. Bring your rifle. And bring your pride too, because you are about to get it shattered into tiny, tiny pieces. I am already regretting this decision. That is the spirit. She left, and I sat there in my quarters, surrounded by my trophies and awards, and wondered what exactly I had just agreed to. Learning from a human. A species that had only joined the Coalition 40 years ago. A species that still used chemical propellant weapons because they apparently enjoyed doing things the hard way. Thex entered again, looking even more nervous than usual. Sir, did you just agree to train with the human? It appears I did, Lieutenant. The other commanders are going to mock you endlessly. Probably. You might lose your ranking. Possibly. Was it worth it? I thought about Kayla's impossible shot, about her confidence, about the way she had looked at that target and simply decided that she was going to hit it. Probability be damned. Ask me again after training, Lieutenant. Sir, one more thing. The human left this for you. He handed me a data pad. On it was a single file titled Reading List for Stubborn Aliens. I opened it. The list contained approximately 300 titles, books about marksmanship, combat philosophy, military strategy, and something called Zen and the Art of Not Sucking at Shooting. I was fairly certain that last one was not a real title, but with humans, who could tell? I started reading, and I did not stop until the station's artificial dawn cycle began. By then, I had gotten through maybe 5% of the list, and I had more questions than answers. But I also had something I had not felt in years. Excitement. The kind of excitement that came from realizing you did not know everything, that there were still techniques to learn, skills to master, perspectives to gain. Tomorrow was going to be interesting, or humiliating. Probably both. Definitely both. But that, I was beginning to understand, was the human way. And maybe, just maybe, it was worth learning. Morning came too quickly, which seemed to be a universal constant, regardless of which planet you called home. I arrived at the auxiliary training facility at precisely 05:55, because arriving early showed dedication, while arriving exactly on time showed desperation. It was a fine line. Kayla was already there. Of course she was. Humans apparently did not require sleep, or else they had perfected the art of looking alert while internally screaming. Hard to tell. "Morning, Commander," she said brightly. Too brightly. Nobody should be that cheerful before the station's cafeteria even opened. "Morning," I replied, with significantly less enthusiasm. "Sleep well? I read your list." "The whole thing?" 5% of it. She whistled, a strange human gesture that involved forcing air through pursed lips. "That is actually impressive. Most people quit after the first title when they realize how long it is. I am not most people. No, you are not." She walked around me slowly, examining my rifle with what I can only describe as professional disdain. "But you are still holding that weapon, like it is doing all the work." "It is." "Exactly. First lesson, put it down." "Excuse me?" "You heard me. Put down the plasma rifle. We are starting with basics." This was ridiculous. I was a decorated marksman with 17 years of experience. Basics were something I had mastered before my second molting. But I put down the rifle because arguing would waste time, and I was curious where this was going. Kayla pulled out what appeared to be a primitive pistol, even more basic than her rifle from yesterday. She held it up like it was something precious. "This is a Model 42 training pistol. No computer, no targeting system, no nothing. Just you, the weapon, and the target. We are going to spend the next week learning how to shoot without any help whatsoever." "A week?" "I have duties, responsibilities, a command structure that expects me to already cleared it with Captain Torres. You are officially on cross-training assignment. Full authorization. No excuses." I felt my scales ripple with annoyance. "You went over my head?" "I went through proper channels. Big difference. Now, are we doing this, or are you going to stand there complaining about protocol?" I took the pistol. It felt wrong in my hands. Too light. Too simple. Too primitive. "Good," Kayla said. "Now, show me your stance." I positioned myself according to Coalition standard doctrine. Feet shoulder-width apart, arms extended, body squared to the target. Textbook perfect. "Terrible," Kayla announced. "This is regulation stance." "This is regulation stance for someone wearing powered armor with gyroscopic stabilization and enough tech to calculate orbital mechanics. You are not wearing armor. Try again." She physically adjusted my position, moving my feet, rotating my torso, shifting my weight. It felt awkward and wrong, and entirely too casual. "This is not proper form," I protested. "This is human form. And before you argue, remember who made the impossible shot yesterday." She had a point. An annoying, valid point. "Now," she continued, "forget everything you know about targeting computers. Forget prediction algorithms. Forget assisted aim. I want you to look at that target and just feel it. Feel it. Feel it. That is not helpful instruction. It is not supposed to be helpful. It is supposed to be frustrating. Welcome to how humans learn everything. I aimed at the target. A simple circle at 20 meters. Child's play. Embarrassingly easy. I squeezed the trigger. Missed. Completely missed. The projectile sailed past the target and embedded itself in the wall approximately half a meter to the left. What just happened? I demanded. You realize that you do not actually know how to shoot, Kayla said, not unkindly. You know how to let a computer shoot for you. Different skill entirely. I fired again. Missed again. And again. And again. After 20 shots, I had hit the target exactly twice, and both hits were barely on the outer edge. This is humiliating. This is learning. Also, yes, extremely humiliating. But that is part of the process. She took the weapon from me and fired 5 shots in rapid succession. 5 perfect hits, grouped so tightly they almost formed a slot of the blade. Single hole in the center of the target. How? Practice. Thousands of hours of practice. I started shooting when I was 8 years old. My father took me to a range every weekend. Rain, shine, snow, didn't matter. We shot until my hands cramped and my shoulders ached and I could barely see straight. And you know what he told me? What? He said, Kayla, the weapon does not make you dangerous. You make the weapon dangerous. The gun is just a tool. You are the weapon. That was actually profound. Annoyingly profound. So, I should practice for thousands of hours? That would help, yes. But we do not have thousands of hours. We have 1 week. So instead, I am going to teach you the shortcut. There is a shortcut? There is always a shortcut. The question is whether you are willing to trust me enough to follow it. I looked at this human female, this impossible person who had embarrassed me, intrigued me, and now offered to teach me something that went against every piece of training I had ever received. Fine, show me your shortcut. Kayla grinned. First, we need to talk about breathing. The next 3 hours were possibly the most frustrating of my entire military career. Kayla had me doing exercises that seemed completely unrelated to marksmanship. Breathing patterns, mental visualization, something called meditation, which apparently involved sitting still and thinking about nothing, which seemed like a waste of perfectly good thinking time. This is pointless, I said, after the 15th breathing exercise. You cannot shoot properly without controlling your breathing and your mind. I control my breathing fine. You control your breathing like someone who expects a computer to compensate for any irregularities. I need you to control your breathing like someone whose life depends on the next shot. My life has never depended on a single shot. Lucky you. Mine has. 3 times, actually. Want to hear about it? I did, but I was not going to admit it. Continue with the training. She smiled, like she knew exactly what I was thinking. Probably did. Humans seemed unnervingly good at reading other species. By midday, my accuracy had improved from dismal to merely terrible. I was hitting the target maybe 60% of the time, which was better than the 10% from this morning but still far below my normal standards. You are overthinking, Kayla said, watching me line up another shot. I am thinking the appropriate amount. No such thing in combat. You either think too much or not enough. The sweet spot is instinct. Instinct is unreliable. Trained instinct is not. That is what we are building. Your body needs to know what to do before your brain catches up. That sounds dangerous. Combat is dangerous. We are just making you better at surviving it. She demonstrated again, moving through the shooting sequence so smoothly it looked like a dance. Stance, breath, aim, squeeze, no hesitation, no overthinking, just fluid motion from start to finish. Your turn. I tried to replicate her movements. Better? Kayla said. You are starting to feel it. I am starting to feel exhausted. Same thing, in this context. Your conscious mind is getting tired, which means your subconscious is taking over. That is what we want. By the time the station's evening cycle began, I had managed to hit the target 85% of the time. Still not perfect, but improving rapidly. Not bad for day 1, Kayla said, reviewing my scores. Tomorrow, we add movement. Movement? You did not think we would stay stationary forever, did you? Combat happens while things are moving, usually toward you, often explosively. I am already regretting this. Too late to back out now, Commander. You are committed. She was right. Word had spread through the station that I was training with the human. Other officers had started making jokes. Lieutenant Thex reported that there was now a betting pool on how long I would last before giving up. The current odds were not favorable. Day 2 began with running. Apparently, humans believed that shooting while physically exhausted was an essential skill. I believed that humans enjoyed suffering for no logical reason. This is torture, I gasped after the 5th lap around the training facility. This is conditioning. Enemies do not wait for you to catch your breath. Now, pick up the weapon and hit that target. My hands were shaking from exertion. My breathing was irregular. My vision was slightly blurred from the 4 eyes, trying to focus independently. I fired. Hit. See? Kayla said. Your body knows what to do even when your brain is too tired to interfere. That is trained instinct. We repeated this drill approximately 40 times, running until I was exhausted, then shooting, then running again. It was brutal, effective, and I hated every moment, while simultaneously appreciating the logic. By day 3, we moved to dynamic targets. Moving, weaving, unpredictable targets that required me to read their pattern and react accordingly. Stop trying to calculate, Kayla instructed. Just watch and respond. I am watching. No, you are analyzing. Different thing. Watch like a predator watching prey. Quarathi are not predators. Then watch like prey watching a predator. Same principle. Your species survived somehow. Tap into that. It was strange advice, but I tried it. Instead of breaking down the target's movement into mathematical vectors, I just watched. Observed. Let my eyes track the motion without conscious thought. Fired. Hit. There you go, Kayla shouted. That is what I am talking about. You felt it. And I had. For just a moment, I had stopped thinking and started reacting. It was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. Had rigged the training facility with noise generators, strobe lights, and smoke machines. Apparently, shooting in comfortable conditions was too easy. This is excessive, I said, coughing through artificial smoke. This is Tuesday for human infantry. Now, shoot. The conditions were awful. Visibility was poor. The noise was disorienting. The lights made focusing difficult. And somehow, my accuracy was improving. You are adapting, Kayla observed. Your brain is learning to filter out irrelevant stimuli and focus on what matters. Or, I am having a breakdown and hallucinating success. Could be that too. But let's assume it is the first one. By day 5, something remarkable happened. I stopped missing. Not completely. I was not perfect. But my accuracy had climbed to 92%, even under adverse conditions, even while moving, even while exhausted. You are getting it, Kayla said, genuine pride in her voice. You are becoming a marksman instead of just a soldier who can point a rifle. The difference being? Marksman owns the skill. Soldier borrows it from technology. When your tech fails, and it will fail eventually, the marksman survives. The soldier does not. On day 6, Kayla introduced me to something she called competitive shooting. Apparently, humans turned everything into competition, including activities that were supposed to be serious military skills. We are going to race, she announced. Race? 5 targets each. First to clear all 5 wins. What do we win? Bragging rights. And the loser buys drinks. I do not drink. Then the loser sits quietly while the winner talks about how great they are. Come on, it will be fun. It was not fun. It was intense, nerve-wracking, and absolutely thrilling. We lined up. The targets appeared. Kayla moved like liquid, flowing from target to target with practiced ease. 5 shots, 5 hits, done in maybe 8 seconds. I followed her pattern, letting instinct guide me instead of overthinking. 5 shots, 5 hits, 9 seconds. You are getting faster, Kayla said, impressed. Week ago, that would have taken you 30 seconds, and half those shots would have missed. Week ago, I relied on targeting computers. And now? Now I rely on training. On instinct. On feeling. She laughed, delighted. Listen to you, sounding all mystical and human. You sure you are not part human? Genetically impossible. Spiritually possible, though. You are thinking like a warrior now instead of a soldier. Day 7 arrived, and with it came the final test. Kayla had set up a course that combined everything we had practiced. Moving targets, poor visibility, physical exhaustion, stress conditions, and time pressure. This is your graduation exam, she said seriously. Pass this, and you will have earned something no other coalition officer has ever earned. A human marksmanship certification. That is a real thing. I am making it a real thing right now. Congratulations, you are the first recipient, assuming you pass. The course was brutal. I ran, shot, climbed, shot again, crawled through smoke, shot, while my hands shook and my vision blurred, and every instinct screamed at me to stop and rest. But I did not stop, because somewhere over the past week, Kayla had taught me something more valuable than marksmanship. She had taught me that limitations were often self-imposed, that technology was a tool, not a crutch, that the difference between adequate and exceptional was not talent or equipment, but mindset. Final target. The impossible drone from week 1. The nightmare scenario. It appeared, moving erratically, ducking and weaving like it was personally offended by my existence. I did not calculate, did not predict, did not overthink. I watched, felt, reacted, fired. The drone exploded in a deeply satisfying shower of sparks. Kayla was silent for a long moment. Then she started clapping. A sharp, rhythmic sound that echoed through the facility. Commander Vex. She said formally, "Congratulations, you are now officially a warrior." I looked at her, this impossible human who had taken an arrogant Kwarathi officer and somehow turned him into something better. "Thank you," I said simply, "for the humiliation and the education. They are the same thing, really. Now, about that betting pool on the station. What about it? Want to make some money?" 2 weeks later, the annual Coalition Marksmanship Tournament took place. I had entered every year for the past decade, always placing second because of that 3-eyed freak from Sector 9. This year was different. This year, I walked onto the range with my plasma rifle set to manual mode. No targeting computer. No assisted aim. Nothing but me, the weapon, and the targets. The other competitors laughed. Some openly mocked. Using manual mode was considered either foolish or showing off. And nobody could figure out which I was doing. Neither could I. Honestly. The first round eliminated 60% of competitors. Simple targets, but the pressure got to people. I cleared it perfectly. Second round was moving targets. 50% elimination rate. I cleared it perfectly. Third round was the stress course. Smoke, noise, chaos. Elimination rate was usually 75%. I cleared it perfectly. The final round came down to 3 competitors. Me, the 3-eyed freak from Sector 9, and a Draxian female who apparently could see in 12 different spectrums simultaneously. The final target appeared. The impossible drone. Three-eyed freak fired first. Missed. Fired again. Missed. Continued missing until his ammunition ran out, and he walked off the range cursing in 7 different languages. Draxian female took her turn. Better. She forced it to evade twice, even grazed it once, but no direct hit. My turn. I stepped up to the line, and I swear I could feel Kayla watching from the observation deck. Could feel her lessons echoing in my mind. Breathe, watch, feel, react. The drone began its pattern. I tracked it smoothly, letting my body move before my brain could interfere. Fired. Direct hit. Dead center. Drone exploded spectacularly. The range went silent. Then, someone started clapping. Then, everyone was clapping. Even Three-Eyed Freak stopped cursing long enough to offer a respectful gesture. I had won. First place. Finally. But more importantly, I had done it without relying on technology to compensate for skill. I had done it the human way. Later, at the reception, Kayla found me surrounded by well-wishers and people who suddenly wanted to know my training secrets. I should never have doubted. Oh, you absolutely should have doubted. Doubt is healthy. But you trusted anyway. That took guts. Or stupidity. Same thing in the military. Hey, Commander. Want to know something funny? What? What? That first shot you made today? The one that won the tournament? Hit the power coupling instead, just like I did week 1. Happy accident. But it looked intentional, and that is what matters. She walked away, laughing, leaving me standing there trying to figure out if she was serious or just messing with my head. Probably both. Definitely both. Lieutenant Thex approached nervously. Always nervous. His natural state. Sir, congratulations on the victory. The betting pool is going to pay out substantially in your favor. We bet on me? The human suggested it. She said it was guaranteed money. She was correct. Of course she was. Humans seem to have an uncanny ability to predict outcomes, probably because they had spent thousands of years studying how to kill each other efficiently. That night, I sat in my quarters, my new first-place trophy sitting next to all my second-place ones. It should have felt like validation, like triumph, like everything I had worked toward for years. Instead, it felt like a beginning, because Kayla was right. The difference between a soldier and a warrior was not equipment or training or talent. It was mindset. Soldiers did what they were told. Warriors did what was necessary. And Earth, that strange little planet full of violent, creative, stubborn humans, had been training warriors while the rest of the galaxy was training soldiers. The implications were staggering and slightly terrifying. My communicator chimed. Message from Kayla. Drinks on you, Commander. You won. I provided training. That means you pay. Human tradition. See you at 1900. Bring your trophy. I want to mock it. I looked at the message and found my mandibles clicking in amusement. Yes, humans were terrifying, but they were also surprisingly good teachers. And if the galaxy ever faced a threat that required warriors instead of soldiers, well, at least now, there was one Quarathi officer who might stand a chance. Thanks to one impossible, infuriating, brilliant human female named Kayla Frost.